Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Bruce. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Deb Harris, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. Today is December 20th, 2020. Amazing, this year has gone by so quickly. I will be your worship associate this morning for this Zoom service. Please bear with us. We've had a few technical glitches, but we're hoping everything's fine now. We're very happy to have the Rev Bob MacDonald in our pulpit this morning. I would like to extend a thank you to those who've helped with today's service. Bruce Ruby, our musical director, our Zoom host and troubleshooter for technology, Corina Pelloni, and our backups. We will mute everyone to avoid background noise. Please remain muted at this time. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, races, ages, and backgrounds. We're glad you're with us today. For the time being, as you know, we're holding Zoom services every Sunday at 11 o'clock. Announcements are in our Friday newsletter. If you'd like to be put on the newsletter mailing list to get announcements, please go to tcuuc.org for more information. In the Friday newsletter, there will be a link for the next Zoom service. While you're there, please note that there is a link for online giving. With no in-person services, it's easy to overlook the fact that the church needs ongoing support. As an alternative to making an online contribution, you can also send a check to 21 Southeast Central Parkway, Stuart, Florida, 34997. Thank you very much. And now, Bob will light our chalice. Amid all the noise in our lives, amid the stress and the sadness caused by the ongoing pandemic, we take this moment to pause, to sit in silence and gratitude, to give thanks for another day, to give thanks for all those in our lives who have brought us warmth and love, to give thanks for the gift of life. The opening words for this morning are from our gray hymnal, number 653. They seem very appropriate for this time. The title is Reflections on the Resurgence of Joy. How short the daylight hours have now become. How gray the skies, how barren seem the trees. A damp and chilling wind has gripped my mind and made me gloomy too. But there is that in me which reaches up toward light and laughter, bells and carolers, and knows that my religious myth and dream of reborn joy and goodness must be true. Because it speaks the truths of older myths, that light returns to balance darkness, life surges in the evergreen and us. And babes are hope and saviors of the world, as miracles abound in common things. Rejoice and join in the gladness of Christmas. That's by Dory Janine Summers. And now Bruce will play and sing hymn 225, O Come, Emmanuel. And now let us recite our affirmation, speaking the first verse and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. now we have our time for all ages. And Corina, that's you.
So the winter solstice is tomorrow at 5:02 a.m. In honor of that occasion, I have composed for you an original poem. The Oak King and the Holly King are brothers. I'd bought hot cocoa and some funny socks, and I was in the Target parking lot. Walking the bleak asphalt divide, I viewed a tree on either side. Holly and oak, I thought. Soon the battle must be fought. Let's take a moment for an aside. In Florida, they flourish side by side. For here, the oak and the holly king implore grandma to give up her keys, and the more convincing of the brothers shall drive her sedan until midsummer. Well, that's not exactly true. And in places where winter happens, back to the holly berries bright, half the year shielded from sight by oaken boughs so densely green. Yet come winter, he sets the scene. The alleged contest for his fame was fought midsummer against the same Oak King, regent of the wood, who's come again, just as he should, and win this time the Oak King will. The winter shall remain still. Are we sure we have this right? Are we so certain that they'll fight? In the Target lot, they seemed content, planted in the grass atwixt cement. I thought this question silently, expecting no answer from a tree. Yet a gentle whisper brushed my ear so soft, barely I could hear. A great oak I am not, planted in this parking lot, yet I know what all oaks know, even here where there isn't snow. The wheel of the year continues round, and humans are with customs bound to mark the turn of dark and light. And you seem to require a show of might. I'd prefer peace, I said and sighed, drawing some looks from passers-by. We have peace, the oak replied, but your stories reflect what you hold inside. Yes, we're brothers. Words from berries bright came like a chime of ice on ice. Though I won't claim to be the winter king, in the song of seasons all hollies sing. Our part is the part of cold and dark, but at winter's depth glows a spark. The sun is reborn at that hour. The Oak King returns to claim his power. I grant him his turn as he grants mine. At summer's height, for berry boughs vine, we both linger in our brother's land and do our work hand in hand. The land must rest if she's to yield, and like grain born from a fallowed field, in silence rests the spark of song, in darkness light, though night seems long. Humans pursue ease and wealth at the cost of Gaia's health. We turn the wheel to keep our mother, we have no quarrel with one another. And I could guess, but I asked the question, so is the conflict all our own projection? Me, crazy me, speaking with trees, but branches nodded in the breeze. The battle rages in your heart, the conflict between light and dark, the very struggle to survive, to defeat death, to remain alive. For humankind, life can be more than evolution keeping score. You can tell a different story with peace as the true path to glory. I agreed to give account I vowed and performed a clumsy bow in thanks for wisdom offered me by the oak and holly tree. So the battle of the trees is rather the brotherhood of these I gather, each a station of the year, turning seasons far than near. So at close this blessing shall I say, on the lesser wheel of night and day, as we all choose our paths anew, a peaceful path I wish for you.
Next stop, Broadway, right, Corina? That was lovely, thank you. And now we have our joys and sorrows. If you'd like to share a personal joy or sorrow, I will move a stone in our symbolic river to mark your joy or sorrow. Please keep them brief. Raise your hand to share, and Corina will unmute you to speak. Well, for those of you who have a joy or sorrow that's too personal to share, please know that our hearts and our best wishes are with you, and I will move a stone for you. And now Reverend Bob has a reading for us. We'll do a little.
The meditation is from the back of the hymnal, Stand by This Faith, Olympia Brown. Stand by this faith, work for it, and sacrifice for it. There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith which has placed before us the loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for noble duty, and made the world beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message, that you are strong enough to work for a great true principle without counting the cost. Go on finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves. Olympia Brown. And now moments of silence. Thank you, Corina, for that beautiful fireplace. Maybe you could just keep it on while I do the sermon later. No, not really. Before that, we are going to learn what Judy Bajoris learned about Christmas in Mexico. Judy.
Okay, good. I'm very happy to be able to share some joyful memories from my Christmases in Mexico. The first Christmas I spent away from my childhood home in South Texas was in Mexico City at the age of 5. My dad drove me, his mom, my mom, and my brother and sister in our old Ford down winding mountain roads and across narrow bridges to what was truly a Feliz Navidad. The spectacular Christmas lights on the main plaza of downtown Mexico City were an unforgettable sight. I was bedazzled by the elaborately festooned streets and buildings illuminated with enormous holiday scenes, from the religious to the secular. With our Christmas tree 800 miles away back in Corpus Christi, Dad created a celebratory mood for us with a traditional Mexican star piñata with its 7 points representing the 7 deadly sins. We broke it open in our hotel room on Christmas morning. There must have been fruit and candy inside, but All I remember is a very small plastic baby in a bathtub, which my parents must have picked up at the local flea market, and a note from Santa reading, "Judy, since you were not at home when I came by, I left your bicycle in the next door neighbor's garage." As the family story goes, I repeated the text from that message over and over again all the way home. We returned to Texas via a different route so we could see the Paricutin. This short-lived volcano had suddenly burst forth in a farmer's field about 200 miles west of Mexico City in 1943. We were there in 1951 and got to see some of its last eruptions. Now that was a Yuletide fireplace to remember. Fast forward about 15 years, I'm living in Mexico City, working on a degree in Spanish language and literature at the University of the Americas. A memorable Christmas from that time was at a traditional posada, a reenactment of Mary and Joseph's search for lodging. Groups sing call and response verses, where the pilgrims plead for a place to stay and the innkeepers keep turning them away, until one finally offers them shelter with a joyful, welcoming stanza. Everyone is invited in, and the party begins, piñata and all. These posadas run from December 16th to the 24th. Many festivities, though called posadas, are actually just Christmas parties, but the one I'll never forget was the typical procession through neighborhood streets. For some reason, I, the only gringa in the group, was assigned the role of Maria. Jose and I marched at the front, holding candles and statues of Mary and Joseph, knocking on doors, and of course, singing our part along with the rest of the group. I was quite honored, though also somewhat embarrassed, to be chosen for such meaningful participation in that age-old tradition. The joy of this event and the warmth of the people stands out as one of my happiest memories ever. In later years, similar to the custom here of driving around to see Christmas lights on people's houses, my Mexican family and I would drive through neighborhoods to see the many elaborate nativity scenes, some of these taking up an entire garage. Another holiday memory involves a cultural adjustment our bicultural family made. You see, my children were born in Mexico. Their first language is Spanish. Their father is Mexican. One year, when we still lived in Mexico City, my daughter came home from kindergarten in early January to ask why the other kids had gotten gifts from the Three Kings, but she hadn't. Scrambling for an answer, what I came up with was, it's like Santa, you need to believe in him for him to bring you presents. Well, she immediately became a believer. And for the next few years, Jennifer and Marcos would set their shoes along with some treats for the camels outside the front door on the night of January 5th, and would wake up the next morning to toys left there by the Three Kings. During the 17 years I lived in Mexico, we actually spent most Christmases with my family in Texas. My husband did not have happy childhood memories of that holiday, and he loved being with my family at that time. Those celebrations pretty much blend together for me: the tree, turkey dinner, the family singing Christmas carols around the piano, lots of gifts and happy moments with mom and dad, my siblings and their families. Those American holidays were always enjoyable and special, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm oh so grateful for my very memorable, magical Mexican Christmases. And with that, I would like to wish all of you a very Feliz Navidad.
Thank you, Judy. Now we have a video that could be in across the border. It's actually in Apex, North Carolina. And this is in line with what Judy has been talking about. Enjoy this video. Believe me, I wasn't intending a promotion of another denomination. And I suspect a number of you looked on that picture and said, hey, they're not wearing masks. I think this is the life we have to hope for someday in the not too distant future. We indeed will. Holiday gifts. When I think back to the gifts I got and to the gifts I gave, the lasting gift is all about presence. People who were given to me, who were present to me, and people I got to be present with for a significant slice of life, mine and theirs. And that's what I want to talk about, holiday gifts. This year, presence can't be what it might have been for years. Holiday gathering and partying have to be muted, postponed. Talk on screens will have to serve where presence with family and friends may have been our holiday norm. So absence is keenly felt by many. We just have to be with the people who mean the most to us the best we can. So presence will be our topic after a lengthy digression, thanks to Ann Nazawa. In the chat time following the postlude last week, Ann asked me how, behold, a woman shall conceive, Isaiah 7:14. If we don't know it from scripture, we certainly know it from Handel's Messiah, written about 700 BCE, not Handel, but Isaiah. How that became, behold, a virgin shall conceive in the Christian sacred text 700 years later. I said something like an ancient text was tweaked to cover a developing belief about Jesus' mother. A little homework since Sunday reminded me that the first Jesus followers who were Jewish were reading their ancient text in the Greek translation, the Septuagint. And in the Greek translation, the word for young woman of Isaiah 7:14 is clearly virgin. Why is not known. The Greek language Hebrew scripture called the Septuagint was written about 300 BCE. So that's too early to suggest Christian tweaking or tampering. Okay, I won't hang out long here, but something that doesn't make sense to us but was common then is called proof texting. Here's the definition of that straight from our sacred writ, Wikipedia. Proof texting is the practice of using isolated, out-of-context quotations from a document to establish a proposition in eisegesis. Now, I love reading a definition and then having to get out the dictionary to look up the word in the definition. Eisegesis, introducing one's own presuppositions, agendas, or biases. It just doesn't seem legit today to take sayings from centuries of yesteryear and say they apply to our newfound faith. But that was done, and not so long ago. Abuse of Jews, women, gays, and blacks was justified by biblical proof text. What was written 2 millennia ago makes it okay to treat people or mistreat people centuries later. One of the beauties to me is St. Paul writes about particular problems in faith communities he founded or knew about. And he says a woman should keep quiet in church, probably meaning a troublemaking person he heard about. But that is lifted and quoted as meaning in church, women are to keep quiet. Okay, back to my topic, honest. The Isaiah quote is, a young woman or virgin shall have a son, and his name shall be called Emmanuel, which means God is with us. The saying is in response to people asking from the prophet Isaiah 700 BCE, asking for a sign that God will protect them from invading foreign armies. So the prophet says, a child will be born, a sign that God will protect us, Emmanuel, God with us. I take that to mean whatever God, religion, spiritual we believe in, something greater than us is present to us. And we have chosen to be present to that God or spiritual or religion. And that has consequences if we take it seriously. I have confessed often that often I don't know what I believe. A sermon is brewing in my head. Can I be called a believer if I don't know what I believe? Now, you might think, well, Bob, why do you want to be a believer? Hey, do I expect you to be rational? Well, I guess I do. I do believe whatever faith or religion we hold dear, that means at least we believe in something greater than us. And that is going to change us, hopefully for the better. All relationships are about presence, and presence is always about more than proximity. I suspect I'm not the only one here who in this time of pandemic is watching Netflix for more than it's worth. There's a long list in that row. Don't you want to continue watching? No. I've been surprised to find how many people have told me they watch crime shows like Dateline, as do we. It was a decision a year or more ago to limit the political news, too upsetting, real criminal news. What we were paying people to do in our name, and they weren't doing, or they were doing. Honest crime, you know, like murder, and the forensics that went into solving seems much more palatable. Back to Netflix. So we got through most of The Crown. Now, I have a dear Brit friend among you who is not to take offense, and who I hope will get, when we get together, will explain the fact from the fiction in this series. But what a lot of pain and sadness in the royal family. By comparison, I suspect all of our families hold up well. And like many, we have grown, I mean me and Lori and I, have grown increasingly fond of Her Majesty over the years. Maybe because in part we know she knows the heartache of family life, as we all do. Presence in relationships takes work, and it is not so easy to pull off. First of all, it means listening. And listening is something some of us really have to work at. You know, once in a while, a mate will be heard to say at home, and this, of course, is hypothetical, but a mate will say something like, "Are you there?" Not meaning physically there, but are you paying attention? I've said here before that I've learned that when you look adoringly into the eyes of your life partner-to-be, before you say, "I do," you have an idea of what you're expecting. From a male point of view, you know you're getting a meal plan, intimacy, and relatives, some of whom will grow on you and some of whom will remain relatives. What I didn't know I was getting after "I do" was a second opinion, and about things I didn't know I needed a second opinion about. So it becomes a life sentence of learning the expectations of presence, and it better be about more than yours. I have found that true in religion as well, and sometimes as deeply, painfully true as I have found it to be in personal relationships. One of the modern Christian creeds says the meaning of Holy Spirit is God present with us for guidance, for comfort, and for strength. Well, we all want and need that, guidance, comfort, and strength. But you get more than that when God, spiritual religion, when you've signed on for that, and you've signed on seriously. God with us, Emmanuel, has expectations. Like in all matters of race relations and race realities. I remember hearing in the early 60s when I was reaching adulthood, or should have, in the era of the civil rights struggle. I remember hearing and unquestioningly swallowing and repeating, Blacks were doing well in sports and in entertainment. Wasn't that progress enough? I sat through To Serve with Love twice. That had to be some kind of a liberal credential. Wrong. I've heard ministers in our Interfaith Alliance here say, George Floyd was a wake-up call or the last straw. How many more Georges have there been since George? Or will there be? Like that poor woman, that poor naked woman attacked by a dozen male cops in her apartment screaming, you're in the wrong place. I've just learned UUs have a program called the Eighth Principle, inviting us to make racial justice a belief and a practice that won't go away until we have scrutinized and changed society and policing, and until we have self-scrutinized thoroughly. And about matters LGBTQ, God or Spirit whispered to me through the courage of a gay minister friend who let me know his agony in the closet and his peril in looking for love. History won't let us go backwards. Here's Mayor Pete saying with pride he will be the first gay cabinet minister. And this week, a great number of clergy, including Bishop Desmond Tutu of South Africa and the Chief Rabbi of Ireland, have moved to ban gay conversion therapy as a crime against humanity. I've known churches in the Northeast to hire counselors to perform such, like exorcism. O come, Emmanuel, we sang. Two quotes give me a clue to what that means. The one you've heard me say many times, the truth will set you free, but first it will make you miserable. And then an author around 1850 said, the duty of newspapers was to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. When COVID is history, we will still have to deal with the saving all of us from climate change. You remember Pogo, we have met the enemy and he is us. And we will still have to deal with income disparity and the rapid rise of the impoverished and hungry in America. COVID has made that rapider or rabider. So that guidance, comfort, and strength package we want from religion comes with surprise instructions. You know, some assembly required, and we are it. Our closing hymn is 126. I chose this because December kind of wraps a couple months of gratitude for me, starting with November 1st, All Saints. And so we'll sing what is more like a Thanksgiving hymn, 126. All right, now this is Bob unmuted for the closing words. The joy and comfort of this somewhat diminished holiday season is still a message we need to hear, and is still a message we can help more to hear. The postlude.
The postlude, many of you may recognize as Home for the Holidays. I thought it was appropriate for this year.